What is going on, you guys? It's your boy, Kindly Kill Me here. We're back with episode 60 of the video game therapy series. Yeah, I know I have this dipshit skin. For some reason, it's loading the default Alex skin, it's not even the Steve, which I would be more okay with, but it's not a sexist thing. It's just not my character. At least my actual skin is like a riff on the Minecraft Steve. This Alex person isn't even close. I'm not even sure if it's supposed to be a woman or just a fluid gendered thing, person, whatever. But I don't know. It's not Steve and it's not Rusty Bucket, so I'm not super keen on this being the default skin. But I'll figure that out later. I just didn't feel like debugging it for a few hours, and I wanted to get one of these out because my motivation has been in the shitter for the past couple weeks. Even to do stuff that I would consider mostly trivial. I'm unable to do a lot of it for some reason, but life goes on. So anyway, trying to do this today, so hopefully I don't get too sidetracked. It's not even that like I'm getting distracted doing other stuff, because I'm actually doing a great job of avoiding the real time sinks like YouTube and whatnot. It's mostly that I just default to just sleeping all the time, which I know is not really a bad thing to do. The other thing is I've noticed that I context switch like crazy, and I think it's 100%. At some point I give myself leeway, but I think at this point it's entirely a procrastination tactic for me to just switch activities and tasks so often and so quickly that you can't get anything done on any of them. Because getting any appreciable amount of work done, at least if it's something serious, requires like at least, a minimum, like, I guess it depends on what kind of work you're doing, but like an hour of focus, you'd think is required to get something done. I suppose an email doesn't count, but I don't count emails as being productive. I think that's mostly just, staying afloat. But yeah, I've been unable to put the full hour towards anything, which is, it's been debilitating. I'll last like a few minutes and then I'll just go lay down or something like that. So I don't know. I think I'm just probably a bit worn out and need some kind of reset of some kind. But I don't know. Life goes on. My first thing I wanted to talk about today, which I realize this is going to be, hopefully I can weasel my way out of this. It makes a little bit of sense. So the Turing test, maybe it's people have cited it a lot nowadays because everyone's getting into AI, and even people who have no fucking clue about, who've never taken a computer science class, are still, the Turing test, pass the Turing test. And they're just, I don't mean to shit on normies here, but, there's a lot more that goes into any kind of sophisticated thing than just doing the Turing test. But anyway, and part of this might be because of the, the elementary understanding of the Turing test. Not to say that, sure, maybe my understanding is elementary, but I find it to be a little not refreshing as like a marker of intelligence. And I realized it was Alan Turing. Is very old, like in comparison to modern day. So certainly he didn't have the full context, and he was trying to devise some kind of helpful test, but I just don't see it as being that helpful. So if you don't know what the Turing test is, it's basically, in order to determine whether or not something is intelligent, it has to fool a human arbiter. So more or less the way you set up the Turing test, and again, this is in his paper. I forgot what it's called, something about computing, but it's in his paper if you want to go read it. Basically, you have a human judge of some kind, and then you have two curtains. Behind one curtain is an actual human, and behind the other curtain is this intelligent agent who's presumably, again, trying to act like a human. So that's kind of what the goal of that thing is. And the test being that if a intelligent being can fool the human interpreter, then it's an intelligent agent or something like that, or it's that's like the Turing test. If it passes the Turing test, it means it can fool the arbiter. If it doesn't, my real beef with this is just that it seems I have so many questions, right? First of all, who's this guy who's evaluating? I don't mean I'm not. I mean, I'm kind of am criticizing outright the evaluator, but who is this guy, right? Do we get to pick who this arbiter is? Because if it's like some boomer as the arbiter of then anything can pass a Turing test, because people are stupid and they don't know how to ask the right questions. The other thing I have is how much time do you get to ask questions? How many questions can you ask? What can you ask questions that involve tasks, right? Can you say like, fire a gun at this target, right? And then can you analyze the accuracy of the shootings to determine whether or not something is a robot or a human? And even then, I mean, I don't know. I just feel like there's a lot that is left unsaid with that to the point where I'm just almost like, it seems like a useless, because it all depends. If you gave any human, I think, a infinite, again, it has to be a theoretical infinite amount of time to ask questions, perhaps eventually they would be able to discern the difference. Therefore, anything could theoretically fail the Turing test. But the issue is we can't deal with these infinite time periods. So then we're left just, again, it seems kind of pointless, right? If we ignore the infinite time being a possibility, then it seems kind of dumb to even like include, if it can fool this person. Like humans are by nature infallible anyway. And honestly, with more and more people are sounding and acting more and more like bots every day anyway. So then it makes it even harder for this human arbiter to be able to do it. But even in the best possible scenario where we have a human, you'd want two clever humans. You wouldn't want a dumbass anywhere, because a dumbass is going to sound like a bot, whereas a clever human might give clues and things to, and if that's allowed. I'm not even sure if it is, again, because this is never clarified when people talk about the Turing test, which, again, maybe there are answers to these questions, but I feel like people they often speak of it as such a high level that these go unanswered, and no one ever has anything to say on the specifics of what this test is going to involve, because otherwise it seems like a pointless test. And I don't know, I suppose if I were to be the person, I guess like the test subject, so to speak, I think my strategy would be to get, even if I was the test subject or the person asking questions, I would try and, if I was asking questions, I'd try to get a question to where the human would just be like, dude, I'm not doing this. This is a waste of time, Whereas like the AI might oblige to it, right? But then of course you have to be wary, is the AI like, I suppose because all humans have a certain amount of like, fuck it, this ain't worth it kind of thinking, which I think might be what, I'm not sure, at least a lot of intelligent agents lack at this point, right? So if we were like, devise a language that has everything is 3 syllables and has to use numbers in every word, the human would be like, dude, I'm not doing this, lol. Like that would be the answer from, behind the curtain. You'd be like, okay, then I can tell this guy's obviously the human. And if it was ChatGPT, it'd be like, of course, I'd be happy to devise you this language. And obviously you could look for like errors in that, but even then I think the AI could either inject errors or the human would just make errors. It wouldn't be able to tell the difference just on their syndications alone. But the fact that a human would be like, fuck it, I'm not doing that. Like, this is not, I didn't sign up for this. I don't want to do this. And so I don't know, maybe that indicates that laziness is one of the last remaining truly human attributes, which means that my last 2 weeks were more human than I've ever been, but it certainly doesn't feel that way. And it wasn't just a long con excuse for me to be lazy either. It was, but can certainly feel like that maybe. But anyway, I don't know. I thought it was interesting, and I don't know. I feel like there are a lot of the conversations and usage around the Turing test is often limited, and I never found it to be that useful. I don't know, because I was like, there's too many questions and possibilities and like ways to fail. And I guess it's more about the theoretical concept of the whole thing. It's not more about the practicality of it. But if something is truly, what the hell? No. If something is impractical even in a theoretical sense, I don't see why bother, you know? I don't know. Maybe I'm just more of a pragmatist or pragmatist. I don't even know how to say that word, but maybe I'm too much of that for this kind of thing to make sense. But I don't know. But yeah, I would fail the Turing test by just refusing to do whatever this person would do if it seemed like too much work, you know, or that, I don't know. I guess you could also, it'd be hard to tell whether or not they were refusing to do it because it was too much work or they just didn't know how. Like if someone asked me to devise a language with 3 syllables that use numbers, like I'd be like, I could probably do this, but it's going to be like very tedious and time consuming. How much am I getting paid to be this Turing test person? You know, is it worth it? I don't think so. What the fuck is going on with these piglins? Okay, well, hopefully that doesn't happen again. Anyway, let me move on to something else. My list has been piling up here because I haven't done anything. I think another aspect of human nature, and maybe it's just modern human, I'm not really sure, but in the modern age, I feel like we need, okay, I'm going to kill these things. I'm just going to kill them. We need somebody below us and someone above us, like in the pecking order type, like, area of things, right? So like, I don't know, someone said this with the middle class at one point. They were like, the middle class is people that are envious of the class above them so that they'll work hard and try to move up. And then the poor class is there just to scare the shit out of the middle class so that they don't, they don't devolve down. Maybe that was a Carlin quote, but either way, it seems apt and it seems to make sense because I don't know, everything is so comparative nowadays. You're always like looking at someone else, and so he's just looking either someone who's worse. You're like, man, what a shithead, that guy's an idiot, or you're like, man, look at that guy's car, something. And obviously, I'm using very, very race car Johnny examples, but I'm sure there's more sophisticated ways of depending on what what area you're in and where you work and stuff like that. This all looks different, right? Money's obviously the easiest way what the fuck? Oh my God. Money's obviously a super easy way that this conversation comes up. But I even mean like, it can be some stuff as stupid as like, whatever, any other kind of rat race style thing. Like, oh, he's a better computer than me. It's like, his wife's hotter than mine or whatever. It doesn't really matter what the competition is, but you need somebody who's got an uglier wife than you and one that has a hotter wife to like, keep things going. Because if you're at the bottom, I suppose I guess there's a strategy in just being at the bottom, so you just don't care. Maybe that's kind of a Diogenes style approach to it. It's like, well, if I have so few possessions and just literally own nothing. Actually, I just own literally nothing. I'm just a naked homeless man. There's no one below me to, what am I scared of really? Which I think is one, I say kind of tongue in cheek, even healthy way of going about it. Not to say that we should all just live out of barrels and, I don't know, piss and shit everywhere like Diogenes did, but there's a certain elegance to that mentality that I think is completely abandoned, right, in the age of looking above and being scared of below kind of thinking. And I don't know, I just thought it was a particularly relevant and necessary description. It's not anything groundbreaking. As per usual, I'm not generally the one out here spouting groundbreaking truths about the universe. I mean, if you're looking for that in a video of some moron playing Minecraft, then I'll be the first to give you the unfortunate news that this is not where you're gonna find the great truths of life. I don't know. I suppose on another level with this, I intrinsically, for whatever reason, value highly, like, I'm going to say the ability of introspection, because I honestly am starting to view it in that way, because I obviously spend a lot of time alone. I mean, I hope it's not too obvious. But I spend a lot of time alone, and a lot of that time is me thinking about stuff, which I think is, let's go get friends and distract yourself and, be talking or doing stuff all the time. I I like it that way. I think it's actually good, not just for me as my own individual to spend a lot of time alone thinking, especially at this age. I think it's good for everybody to do that. I think people that constantly have social stimulus of some kind, not that they miss a lot of benefit, but they don't even develop fully if they don't have the ability to really look within. And I think there's a certain catharsis you feel and you experience when you spend probably a little bit too long thinking intrinsically. And some people just can't handle it. I understand that it's not exactly a fun and comforting place to be. It's just alone with your thoughts. And it's terrifying how bad some people are at this, but I won't dwell on those people. They have enough problems. But I do think it's intrinsically valuable that people spend time alone with themselves. So even if it's just something I do every day, and this is my quote unquote form of meditation. Again, I don't do the whole like, shit. I don't do any of that, or getting some weird, bathtub routine or some shit like that. It's just simple. I just literally lay down on the floor and it's silent. I don't play music or some guided meditation or some fuckwad with a master's degree in social science telling me when to breathe and when out, when not to. I literally just sit there quietly for 10 minutes and I'm alone with my thoughts. Sometimes my thoughts are terrible and I wish that I didn't do it, but I still do it every day because I make myself do it because I know that it's like eating vegetables, right? I don't want to eat my vegetables. Some days some days I might want to eat vegetables. Many days I don't, but I know it's good for me, I suppose. I suppose vegetables as their own aside deserve some critique there, but I won't get into that. I think I've already shit on athletic greens and some of these. I definitely have. I won't rehash that fight, but whatever. All right. Anyway, I'll move on to the next topic thing here. I suppose also if I'm gonna take another jab at the modern human or the Zoomer or the Gen Alpha or whoever the fuck I'm talking about here, you know who you are. Products themselves, any not even the advertisements, the products themselves, they sell you expectations, and ultimately I think results that you're looking for cost everything but money. And of course there are exceptions to this. I think healthy food might be an exception because it's like it's not like I'm selling you the expectation of healthy food, right? In some ways I'm selling you the expectation that you'll look like this shredded dude if you eat this veggie burger or something. So in some ways the product itself is selling you an expectation. Either way, I can't say that the product itself is an expectation, but I think many other products are solely really there's actually no results in the product. The product itself is entirely just expectation of something better, right? Oh, this computer is so get everything done, fastest gaming, and then it's like the expectation is always that this is going to be this orgasmic gaming experience, and maybe that expectation it lives up to that for 5 minutes or so, but then it's if the results you're looking for to use it to be a game developer or learn some skills or anything useful that you'd want to do with this ends up just being everything but money that would have cost you. Like it doesn't cost you money, right? Especially, and it's even easier to see examples of that with the plethora of you can learn anything online. You can learn Pig Latin. I suppose that's not really a super difficult thing to conceptualize, but you could speak it. You could. I don't know. There's all a number of pointless and yet interesting but random things you could. But no one. It's not. Those don't. Money's not ever the barrier. Never. Especially for learning stuff like that. If that's where a lot of the results lie in learning and acquiring new skills. Those cost literally nothing. And sure, you can buy a course, but all the course is selling you is the expectation that you're going to learn a bunch in the class, which is up to you, right? You could take the class and not learn anything because the classes still work. So if you have to put money on the table in order for you to do any work, then that's more of a problem with you than it is like the course, like you not having the course, right? I don't think it's not a matter of like, oh, you can't learn anything unless you buy this masterclass on something. It's like, no, you bought the masterclass as an accountability method for you to actually, want to learn something. And it's your fault that you have to put money forward to do that. But you could also just leave $500 on your nightstand until you, I don't know, learn whatever skill it is you want to learn, and then just don't use it until you finish learning it, which of course no one has the self-control to do. They're just kind of, spend it on Amazon or something dumb. But either way, you could do that, and you would have essentially the same effect of what you're doing with this course. And sure, I guess it's all a matter of gaslighting yourself, which I've talked about at length, is the modern methodology behind a lot of motivation. But I guess it's not really my place to judge if people want to do things that way. But either way, I think the quote that I've derived from this is that products sell you expectations, and the results you're looking for cost everything except for money. They don't cost money most of the time. But even then, I think the money it costs, like of the raw good, aka the veggie burger in that example, pales in comparison to the expectation that you're going to look jacked by eating veggie burgers. But the results also may cost you time going to the gym, everything else you're eating that's not the veggie burger, not eating. It's more what you're not eating than what you're eating. Actually, there's this scientist dude who was like trying to prove the whole calories in, calories out, and he lost like 30 pounds just eating Twinkies. And you're like, how does that happen? Well, he just calculated the number of calories he needed and only ate Twinkies up to be in a calorie deficit, and he lost weight. Now, obviously, at a certain point, he'd be malnourished because you can't just eat Twinkies. You're going to miss out on there's not much protein in there and all that other stuff. So he's going to have trouble building muscle just eating Twinkies. But either way, you could, if your goal is to lose weight, period, you could, it's a simple calculation. It's not a matter of you finding the right blend of vegetables to mix up and put in your morning smoothie. It's a matter of self-control entirely. But who am I to speak? I just was talking about how lazy I was the last 2 weeks. But, I guess the one thing I did find, not really the motivation, I suppose I was so driven by guilt, is to get to the gym and get my workouts in. So I did not miss any workouts, which I'm happy for. But it wasn't really a matter of me being excited to go, because it was more just obligation to the systems that I've created for myself to really drive home the guilt if I ever miss that, which I tend to avoid more than anything. Which it works, because it did work, I suppose. But I don't know. You can make arguments about the healthiness of that if at your leisure, but I'm going to avoid that topic. Let's see. Something I've been reading a very famous book. If you have any exposure to philosophy, perhaps you'd heard of it. It is Friedrich Nietzsche's Beyond Good and Evil. And I'll say outright that it is an incredibly difficult book to read. Maybe that's just because I'm an idiot. Sure, if you read it and you're like, oh, this makes so easy to read. Also, the version I have doesn't. Nietzsche includes these huge passages of Latin and like French and stuff. I don't know any of those languages, and German. I don't know them, and there's not really a translation for them. And I either have to like stop what I'm doing and go find a computer and like punch in this whole passage of Latin. A lot of times I just skip it, so then I end up missing like an entire paragraph at a time of what the fuck he's saying. And I can use context clues to get the gist sometimes, but either way, it's difficult. Partially in that regard, partially because he speaks with, I don't know, he speaks as if you would expect a philosopher to speak, in these like weird Sisyphean tones of like, I don't even know how to describe it. It's like I guess Shakespearean language, but he doesn't use like thou and shit like that. It's just the clauses are all out of order and the words don't make any sense. And it's like, you have to read it like 3 or 4 times to grasp what the fuck he's saying. Anyway, what I have gleaned, a number of things, is that he was quite the angry German man. He wasn't that angry. You're thinking of another angry German man, but he was another angry German man. So I guess he fits that archetype. But the interesting part that I thought about him being even an esteemed philosopher, because a lot of people look at his philosophy as, very influential. He wasn't academic in any sense. He was very, very much just kind of just some dude who just started thinking and talking and writing and stuff like that. Which I think is where philosophy, it shouldn't be reserved to these specialists, of people who in their fields who have studied deeply these other things. And I suppose that I'm even being a little bit hypocritical and even using the word philosophy in this sense, like posing forth that I am indeed philosophizing at any point, which again, to many I probably am not, because there's some formal academic definition that I've never even sniffed, which is fine. I don't really care. You can call this rambling. I don't really care what you call this, and I wouldn't call it philosophizing either. But and even people don't even view Nietzsche as a philosopher, because he lacks some. It's not that he lacks an academic background; it's that he lacks like the referential rigor of quoting and using other philosophers' ideas to build upon. So he was very original in that line of thinking. And I think part of what that makes an interesting read is that he was very original. But the part that I want to, pull out of this is that this was not really specific to his readings, because I read other people who come across in similar ways, but it's very like the culture is like he consistently references like German, European women. Like he references groups of people very like it's natural, right? Whereas like I feel like now if I were to say like, women, if I even start off the sentence with saying women, and then whether it doesn't matter if it's an opinion or whatever I'm saying, like the next thing I'm saying is like borderline, like this is a problem, because he's generalizing all women. He just says women and then something, whatever that might be. Of course, Nietzsche does this with Germans, he does this with Europeans, he does this with Jews. And all of those things immediately put you in a box of like, okay, this person's just said something anti-Semitic. If he says, oh, Jews, even if he says something good, you could be like, even if it's like, you could say something like women, are the reason for our success. Even like something as even positive in that sense could still be, I still almost tense up in the sense that it's like, oh, misogyny incoming, 3, 2, 1. And I don't know if that's a problem with me or with our modern like assimilation of all the culture, but I guess I didn't realize I guess I should have realized this, but it's interesting to see in writing how disjointed cultures are, and how differently he saw himself as Germans and the Germans all together than he saw like Europeans. He talked about how he was like the modern European, which is funny because it almost sounds like the tirades of the liberals and Democrats these days. But he's like, the modern European is this soft, or he didn't say soft, but he would consistently use like negative adjectives describing this modern European, and then he would contrast that with a certain subset of Germans that were he believed were more, I don't know, righteous and thorough in their their beliefs and their happenings and all the other stuff. I don't even know. Either way, he very clearly like set strict differences between cultures, which I feel like nowadays you'd get your head chopped off for that. Even if starting a sentence with saying something like, oh, all Jews and like blank, which is like, you're like immediate like, whoa, what is this guy saying? But he does it like regularly throughout the whole book, and it doesn't ever seem like, and of course I'm sure if you go into philosophy forums, people are probably ripping these people apart, but it's interesting to see how just disjointed a lot of those cultures were, in the sense that he treated the French so differently than he would treat Germans, whereas now we view all people as approximately the same, right? They kind of had this view that certain Europeans are of one like breed and others were of others, which is kind of just preposterous to think about in today's age, especially like Americans. Like, imagine trying to generalize all Americans, right? You're describing the 400-pound person from Alabama the same as you describe like some Silicon Valley douchebag, right? Which is totally different demographics. Sure, both equally worthy of criticism, but the sense that they're generalizable is laughable. But I mean, I suppose maybe there wasn't a level of diversity in his heyday that that warranted I don't know, more nuance with that discussion. But anyway, I just felt it was an interesting part of his the writing style, especially just older people in general. In addition to being a very, very interesting philosophical book, and to be, I guess if he's well known in most philosophical reigns as like the father of nihilism. He really doesn't. I mean, at least not in this book. He really doesn't touch on it that much at all. I mean, he kind of, I guess, just dances around a lot of these different ideas and doesn't. And he's just mostly just very, very cynical, like bah humbuggy kind of style. And sure, maybe that's where a lot of the nihilistic overtones come. But he also speaks at great length of like the wonders and like the great things he does. So of course, like in the midst of his, misogynistic rants on women and what they should be doing and what they shouldn't be doing, he outlines like just beautiful, I guess, praise for their, femininity, right, as an idea. And sure, I guess that might be insulting to some people, but I also think that there should be, like, why would we not celebrate femininity as like a concept, right? I feel like there's a stark difference between, wanting women to be more like men in the sense that they should all be factory workers and computer scientists, versus celebrating the femininity that's their biological edge to begin with. Like, why would we beat that out of them? That seems stupid. It'd be the opposite for men. It'd be like, you wouldn't want them to be more like women. You want to celebrate the nuances of either one. I don't know. I guess that's more of a discussion on like feminism versus womanism versus, what, I guess, how it's been misconstrued and where it's all gone awry. But either way, it's an interesting discussion. But he's also, I mean, he's not like, you'd think like the father of nihilism is this angry, like a truly, I mean, of course he's an angry German, but you expect him to be this like huge, like dickbag wanting to kill everybody. And yeah, sure, a lot of his book isn't positive, I would say. It's critical, but he also, he in many ways he cites a lot of things that he thinks are great and that should be continued. Some of which are, again, have, are geared at this particular group of people. But either way, he has some German superiority, but I guess that's to be expected in that age, that time. Either way, this also got me thinking about how to view people. Not how to view people. That's a terrible way of phrasing it. I suppose let's think about an abstraction here, which again, abstractions are dangerous, but it's an interesting one. That's why I'm going to use it. If people can be represented by a set or a subset of their beliefs, because feasibly there are an infinite amount of beliefs that one person can have, and they're only ever represented by some subset of those beliefs. So think about just like a big list of all the beliefs that person A has, right? And they can be represented by those I don't know, beliefs or the ideas or virtues or whatever the hell you want to call them. You can call them whatever you want. Either way, that's how we're going to represent them. And if we could label those views as, I don't know, in certain ways, right? Suppose Hitler was person A. We could label many of his views with certain categories, right? We could label some as anti-Semitic, misogynistic. It doesn't have to be entirely like negative labels. We could include good labels too, like, positive. This is very individualistic. This is, freedom respecting. This is, I don't know, nationalistic. I'm not even sure. You could assign labels to all of these views. At what point are you able to then label a person with a set of those views? Because again, we've already outlined that the set of views that we're able to look at and label for any person is limited. So you have an unlimited number of views, right? Theoretically, or practically, really. But we only ever know a certain amount of them, right? And I think, not even being realistic, I think, let's say that 10% of your views are out there, known, and are labeled, right? And let's suppose that someone could label 5% of those as misogynistic, right? Is that enough to warrant you being a misogynist? If half of your public views are misogynistic, whereas again that's only 5% of the whole picture. Even so, I think that's even being that's even being reductive. I would say realistically, the views that are out on the table at any given time represent less than 1% of a human, right? An entire human, like all their views, right? But I think the problem that becomes, especially if I don't know, I think about this art versus artist all the time. Like, do we separate the art from the artist? At what point can you not separate the art from the artist? I kind of view it in this sense that, if you taking any one view or even any set of views from a person and labeling them and then using those labels to label the entire person, you're being so reductive because humans are so multifaceted and complex. It seems insulting to even take what you would consider a significant, let's say 100 views that they have, or 100 beliefs or virtues or whatever, and you label all of them as misogynistic. Is that enough to label the person as a misogynist? And even worse, if it's just one view that they have said something before that is distasteful or is just wrong or something, there's no way that can be enough to warrant a label of somebody in a certain way. And I'm thinking mostly about negative things. You could also frame this in the positive way too. We take some beloved person, Ryan Reynolds, for example. Everyone loves him. I'm speaking mostly because it's the opposite of the demographic that I am attracting with this kind of diatribe, this anti-culture cancel culture diatribe. But suppose that we label all of his views as positive. Is that enough? It's never enough to label him as a entirely positive person, right? I think we have to be scientific about it, or even just, exhaustive. We almost have to separate this set of views that we get about a person from the person themselves. Not saying that they're disjointed, we can correlate them, but we can't use that to label the person itself, right? In mathematics, this is very well established. You can't just look at a subset of properties about something and then say, oh, well, because these properties don't violate this principle, then therefore this entire thing is like, no, you have to prove exhaustively that there's no possible property that violates this in order to categorize the entire thing. So but of course we can't look at things as through an entirely mathematical lens, because then it's even more problematic, because we have to have a formal proof of why so and so is a misogynist. But I'm not sure. I think it's better just to avoid the labeling entirely, because it is stupid, right? And sure, yeah, maybe it makes more sense to just label, I don't know, some douchebag as a and I suppose it also, for certain labels, you don't get a set, you get one. Like if you're a pedophile once, you are always a pedophile. Jared from Subway, that guy is never going to be thought of as anything but a pedophile. And sure, I'm sure he has plenty of views that everybody would agree with. I'm sure maybe he was maybe he wanted world hunger to end, and wanted people to be skinny and healthy or something. I'm not even sure. But that guy has been forever labeled, and that he's been branded almost. He's a pirate of sorts, as sort of being P for pirate, it's the P for pedo. That was the little inside joke there. But either way, it's we certainly as a society have deemed that one action on that front is enough to earn you a lifetime label, and maybe that's a good thing. But I think especially with other labels that we we can be more careful with other labels. I think we should, especially as a label that is, that is potentially damaging more so than what, obviously, like somebody who has been a pedophile once, they pose a significant threat. But somebody who has said a sly comment, your uncle who's made some pseudo misogynistic mark, traipsing around and labeling this man as this huge pervert, loser, misogynist mother, who deserves to burn in hell for all eternity. He made he made a distasteful remark, once. That's sure. Did you like it? No. But it's like, at a certain point, you can't run around and, he didn't touch a kid. So I think there should be some lines drawn somewhere. So I don't know. There's just a lot of nuance with this discussion that I think is, it never really ends. I guess the nuance never ends. But anyway, I just thought it was better to err on the side of the other side of the entire arrangement of labeling views and deciding how many views to label is enough to label a person. It's like, why don't we just label the views themselves? And instead of saying this person is misogynist, this person has made misogynist marks. I think that semantical difference is important, because you can't just, sure, you could just label Nietzsche as a misogynist because he said a bunch of misogynist things, but I think it's more apt and more helpful in order to not discredit all the good things he said, because there's certainly a lot of useful philosophy that he's written and discussed in his book, the one I read, and plus all of his other works, that just calling him a misogynist or some anti-Semitic, German sympathizer, nationalist you're just crediting him for no reason. And so now we're throwing out the entire bathwater. We're burning the whole house down instead of just, okay, he is someone who has said misogynist or anti-Semitic things. He doesn't necessarily just deem him an anti-Semite, right? In the same way that we might say that if you've diddled kids that you're a pedo, right? Because I think there's, there's a difference between just saying something and crossing a line, especially when it's a physical line you can cross that might earn you a label of some kind. But I think saying things shouldn't necessarily warrant, even saying a number of things shouldn't necessarily warrant you, being labeled in some way. So I don't know. I think it's just a very, very slippery slope, and it's I don't know. It's an interesting discussion, but it's a difficult one because it is so touchy these days. But yeah, this guy was an angry German, probably the second angriest German that I can think of off the top of my head. But anyway, speaking of society, which I guess I've been beating this horse, so I'm just going to keep going. It's pretty neat, and I'm just going to use the word neat there because I think it's funny. But it's pretty neat that we could blow ourselves up at the drop of a hat. But I think it's my larger argument that surely this is not the natural state of affairs. Suppose that the God that made us, or whatever, fine, science is your God and he made us. Whoever that being or thing is to you, because who made science, huh? Riddle me that. Anyway, science has always existed. It's universal truth. Well, then who made universal truths, right? Who did? Anyway, sorry. Whatever metaphysical being or reason that you exist, that created biology or something, and maybe there's no rules at all. Maybe that's your reasoning for why nuclear bombs should exist, and we've come so far. It's pretty neat, right? We've been able to abstract and understand enough of the world around us to leverage that into making an explosive device that could not only just explode successfully, but could blow up an entire planet on a scale that we struggle to comprehend at all. And the fact that this is wielded by, pseudo-advanced monkeys with advanced prefrontal cortexes and who've created these weird social structures, it's like I said, it's pretty neat. I think that's the adjective I want to use there. But I would argue and reason that it cannot be the natural state of affairs. There's no way that, suppose that some Christian God existed, or even the Buddha existed. You think he was ever considering that in mind, right? That we'd have rocket ships and VR porn, and I think at a certain point he'd be impressed, but it's like someone who can suck their own toes. It's like, this is impressive, yes, but I don't think I want to. Don't do that. It's like I am impressed that you're able to do this, but I wish you didn't. And that's kind of the way I view it. So yeah, sure. I'm impressed that we've come this far, that we can use iPads to deliver, the most calorie dense food imaginable, that, some poor Mexican on a bike is going to drive up to our apartment. But at the same time, don't do that. you know. And I don't know. I think maybe the sucking your own toes is an apt analogy. It's like, sure, that's impressive, but I'm not. Don't do that around me, at least. I don't want to see that. I don't think that's good. I don't think, it's not a. I don't know. And I suppose with that, I'm also just discounting all the the wonderful things for wonderful things' sake that we've done, like the beautiful pieces of music and art that we've made. I suppose you have to kind of take the good with the bad. But maybe we hit our peak at some point, maybe when we had violins and stuff, and there was like, but I think now with, iPads and everything else that exists, I'm starting to get revolted a little bit, like truly like somebody sucking their own toe. I don't want to see that. Can you not do that at all? It's impressive. Yeah, I'm not saying that it's not a feat of some kind, but literally. But I don't want to stop that. Stop it. So it's, I don't know, we have nuclear bombs, but like, why do we need this? I mean, what are we scared of the Russians or something? But I mean, come on, what are we doing with all this? Inevitably some moron is going to, convince everyone he's the next Jesus Christ and get in political office and then fire up the Russians or something. It'll be some political thing, but it's all so stupid at the end of the day. It kind of reminds me of that Rick and Morty episode with the snakes, and Rick finds it just hilarious that they're having this like race war, but they're snakes, and that seems so silly to us, but it's the same shit that we're talking about now. Like, well, we're angry at the Chinese and the Russians for what exactly? Because they're, I mean, I don't know. Again, that sounds like maybe it's a whole hippie take that I'm getting on, but either way, it all seems kind of childish at some point. And that's just all of politics. It all just seems kind of childish. And sure, I'm not trying to be on a echelon above, holier than thou kind of thinking, but in some ways maybe I am, because seriously, what are you guys bickering over? The economy. Of course I'm saying this as I'm, playing Minecraft, which is a product of this economy that these people have fought so vehemently for. But even so, like I would give this up if it meant none of that bickering, right? If it meant a return to saner times. And of course I say that, but I can't put it back in the box. So it's not like I can, of course I could renounce all this and be, Amish or something, but that's not going to do anything, so I don't know. It's an interesting concept, but I don't have all the answers. I'm just saying that it's pretty neat that we can blow each other up. Also, the other reason I thought of that was that it kind of, I think we obviously have emotions, and anger is being one of our emotions. The limit of our anger, at least for the longest time, was like, okay, this person maybe he can murder one other person or a couple other people before someone could, wrangle him down and kill him. But the extent of our emotions were pretty limited, right? We can only murder up to a handful of people with our emotions, which again, the grand scheme of things isn't really that much. But you think about the consequences of another Hitler coming along. That guy was able to incite death and violence and just overall pain on a scale that is unbelievable. Right, this one angry guy did all that. That's insane. And of course, he himself wasn't the one who didn't run around and strangle everyone by himself, but he still was like the figurehead and the driving force behind the deaths of an innumerable number of, that's, how many people? That's so many people. That's insane. And I think that's another causality of our modern society. So we get the arts and the classics and Minecraft, but then we have to deal with the atrocities on the same scale. So sure, we get amenities at scale, right? We get food, we get heating, we get plumbing, we get water and stuff like that. But we also have to deal with the atrocities at scale, and that kind of comes with it, right? Time to pay the piper. But at a certain point, I'm willing to forego the amenities, especially if the amenities are 6G internet and VR porn. I'll forego those happily. I don't need those. No one needs them. Or more plastic shit that someone has to buy. I mean, I'll forego those too. I don't want those. I think we can agree as a society we should go back, because inevitably it results in atrocities of equal scale. And I'm not saying that there's going to be another, huge, terrible thing going on, but there probably inevitably will be, right? Whether it's some climate disaster or some, I don't know, horrible event or something. I don't even know what event is going to end up killing a bunch of people, but inevitably, it's unfortunate that I would say that I think the deaths that we have not reached the end of human suffering here. We're not even close. I think there's going to be genocides or wars, perhaps on scales that we haven't seen before. And because again, we take the amenities with the losses here, so we don't get to pick and choose, right? It was, as good as we might say we want to defend our use of iPads, but then that comes with Hitler 2.0 and 3.0 that I think are somewhere around the corner. So I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but I certainly don't. I tend to try to view things in an abstracted sense and not in an absolute sense, and not saying, oh, we'll never do that again. It's like we've done that. We've said that every time, right? I'm sure that, whatever the guy took the apple off the tree, Adam said, oh, we'll never do that again. I just wanted the one apple. Bull fucking crap. All right. Of course, that's a fake example because it never happened, but who cares? That's not the metaphysical point of it, is in the sense that we've always said, oh, we'll never do that again. And then it fucking happens again because, whether a generation forgets about it or there's just some person who's insane, who knows? It always happens again. So what, are we really too stupid to think that, Hitler 2.0 isn't somewhere around here, But anyway, I don't know. Well, hopefully that wasn't too edgy, but at least I'm glad I did one of these. It's been a while, and I don't know. Maybe I'm human because I'm so lazy. I don't know, but would you pass the Turing test? That is the question I leave you with. It actually depends on who I was, but I think if I was the judge, I would probably fail. But anyway, thanks for watching. Peace out, and I will see you next time.